in this video, we're going to put a little bit more mechanics to thoughts, right? So in our physical, non-physical circle, right, which is a representation of this present moment, we talked about how the hemisphere that's non-physical, one of the predominant themes for it is our thought. But what exactly are our thoughts, right? You know, like what can we get our hands on them and what do they look like? So in this module and in this video, we call them thought paths. And you're going to find two circles just like this in your manual. Now what I want you to do is, I want you to label this one, pictures and movies, this one, voices and dialogues. So our thoughts present themselves to us in two primary ways. Pictures or movies, voices or dialogues, okay? So one of the, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but it's the main ones, right? So one of the ways our thoughts present themselves to us as pictures or movies is memories, right? So if I asked you to think about this morning, you know, or maybe the last time you were outside or you were driving a car or, you know, anything like that, yesterday, things you did yesterday, it probably presents itself to you as a movie, right? A movie that plays out in your mind, right? And just one other clarification, if you wanted to flip back to your physical, non-physical, you could. Our brain is physical, our mind is non-physical, right? And they're two separate things. So in our mind, we experience a memory as a movie, right? Now, if I asked you to think about a red wagon, it probably presents itself to you as a picture, right? The other way is, and I call them reverse memories, or projections into the future. Why do I call them reverse memories? So if you know, I don't know where you're watching this at, but let's say you have something planned. Let's say after, you know, you're done this module, you're going to take a drive and go to a restaurant and get something to eat, right? So if I ask you to think about, you know, like going to the restaurant and getting something to eat, right? That probably plays itself out to you as a movie, right? So the reason I call them reverse memories is, and then isn't it interesting, whether you're remembering the past, or we like to say reliving the past, or pre-living the future, mechanically speaking, at least in our thoughts, it plays itself out as pictures or movies, right? Now, I left this one circle here, and we'll talk about that in a second, okay? So, our thoughts play themselves out as pictures or movies, or voices or dialogues, right? And again, this is an exhaustive list, but it's some of the more common ones, okay? So one of the most common ones here, I call it cast of thousands, right? So your second grade teacher, you know, a parent, a spouse, a mentor, you know, the person that bagged your groceries for you, the person that, you know, served you in a restaurant, you know, parents, their kids, there's just a whole, again, cast of thousands, right? You know, and I remember there was one lady that came to one of our workshops, and, you know, she talked about how whenever she would, you know, step into or start to take some post-education, whether it's, you know, just sort of, I don't know if you want to call them recreational courses or things like that. Whenever she would kind of start the process, right, these voices in her mind, and notice they never come as one, there are always a bunch of them, right? These voices in her mind would include, you know, the guidance counselor or a high school teacher or something like that, you know, saying, well, you know, Jenny, she's just not cut out for, you know, higher education or whatever, right? You know, so those actors, if you will, right? And then the other ones, or the other one that's the most common, I call our own voices. Plural, again, because, you know, there's more than one of them, right? You know, and now this is an interesting, you know, thing to think about. So we're having this dialogue, right? You're having a dialogue right now within your mind. Now, a dialogue takes two people, right? There's got to be one talking and one listening. So, the question I know kind of warped my mind was, so which one am I? Right? Am I the one doing the talking, or am I the one doing the listening? And if you will notice, it is a dialogue. And one half, if you will, of the dialogue is like an external you talking to you. And so the dialogue will be from like a third person. It will say you. It will use the word you in its sentences. Why are you doing this, right? Are you going to do this now? What are you thinking about? What are you planning? Why are you doing this, right? So it uses that. And then the other side is the first person. So I, right? I am going to do this. I am going to do that. In the example of in the physical, non-physical circle, moving the chair, it was, I think I would like the chair somewhere else, right? So it really is a dialogue, and your own voices, they're the third person. They're the ones that use the word you, right? So where's your, I like to say, your I am voice? Well, I'm going to use a different color. It's in this circle here. Where is this circle here? And I'll actually just label this. This circle here is the present moment. Here, right here. And so in our conversation with our own voices, or even with the cast of thousands, there is our voice. And I like to call that our I am voice. It's our I am voice. Remember in our previous maps we have that circle that's I am. Well, that's who you are, right? You're that I am voice. And I notice the sun is going behind a cloud here, so if the video gets a little bit darker, that's the reason why, okay? So this is our I am voice. Now, when we're further on in the manual and we talk about the 5 steps of manifesting, one of them is going to be, we call it living your C, quote, on the inside, and we'll talk about what the C is in upcoming videos here. So one of the prime ways you do that is you visualize. So when you visualize, you're visualizing here, right? So here, in our I am place, is where we visualize. That's kind of written off the end of the board there, right? So when we visualize, we're using the same mechanics, right? We're using pictures or movies to create a pattern, right? Or a framework in our mind in the non-physical. And then as we talk about it, then you'll focus on it using your focuser that we talked about in the Focus Notice Awareness Circle, right? So when we visualize, we're visualizing here in this present moment, right? And you often, many of you have probably heard of affirmations, right? So when we make affirmations, we're making them with our I am voice. And by the way, referring to some of our other modules, if we're in the power flow, right? When we make affirmations when we're in the power flow, they are very impactful and very creative. When we make affirmations when this go on the other direction, for the most part, we're just making a bunch of noise because the flow isn't going in that creative flow, right? That's why that direction of flow is such an important understanding and technique, if you will, to really nurture and develop. Okay, but for our purposes here, your thoughts, thought pies, pictures or movies, memories, reverse memories or projections into the future, or we visualize, right? Voices or dialogue, cast of thousands, I don't know, the policeman, again, the teacher, the spouse, the person that pumped your gas, all those, right? And then our own voices, the other side of the conversation that we are having with them. All right? Perfect. And that is Thought Pies.